We are so excited to be welcoming DJ Paulette to the Leave It Here podcast. Born in Manchester, her legendary career spans over 3 decades. She was one of the founding DJs at Manchester's iconic Hacienda and has received some incredible titles, including DJ Mag's Lifetime Achievement Award, Top 5 Women in the Manchester Music Industry, and Manchester Woman of the Year. She's been a resident DJ at some of the biggest clubs globally and played alongside some of the world's most prestigious DJs. Not only has she always been at the forefront of the house music scene, she's also an activist and now an author. She's achieved all of this whilst experiencing some extremely turbulent periods with her mental health. She is a legend, she's an icon, and we can't wait for you to hear this episode. Now we're rolling. Okay, fantastic.
How giddy can you be?
Innit? Literally, we've just sat down and started without even putting the camera on. But no, I am, just as I just said before we even started recording, I'm absolutely buzzing to have you on the Leave It Here podcast, especially the first episode that we're ever recording. Like every time we see each other, and like I don't ever think we were really like introduced to each other. We kind of just got in a room with each other and just like saw each other, and then every time we see each other we just never shut up, and we have the most interesting conversations, and I'm really excited to have you here.
Well, the truth is, little Miss Stalker here, I've been following you before I met you. So I was following you, the stuff that you did with Manchester's Finest, and when you started to do the Instagram page, and I watched your Instagram page really blow up. And I was proud in that way, because it's like, oh, there's 2 chicks, married chicks from Manchester, and they're absolutely smashing it online. How are they doing that? Because you kind of got round that. You seem to embrace what it takes to get an online community kind of engaged and rolling. And you built that page from nothing. I watched you build it from nothing. And you were talking about things that were kind of relevant and resonated with me. So I'm a follower. And
nice,
I'm a real follower. So when we first met, I was just like,
that's actually wild though, because you were such a superstar that for you to say that, I'm like, whoa. But
like...
yeah, but it's really interesting to know how and who and what people follow, because I don't really follow. I mean, I follow some like massive megastars, but they would never reply or whatever. But the real accounts that I follow, apart from dogs and cats, are accounts that are going to help me in some way navigate this thing called life, and navigate this thing called life in a good way. And without feeling like I'm completely losing my marbles every day. And that is how I saw your page, because you were talking about things that were real, like it was real life, and in a way that wasn't, you know, like everyone on Instagram is a specialist because they've read Google, but it was just like, it just worked.
Yeah,
that's exactly what we wanted it. Like, we wanted it to just be authentic. We're not trying to be anybody. Don't want to be a specialist. We're not doctors. We've never said that we were. We just wanted to be like 2 normal, regular people going through their lives and just wanting to normalize a conversation. Yeah. And I think because it was come from such an authentic, we didn't really have an idea. We were just, let's just go for it.
Not at all. And I think it, like, Feel Good Club was never really supposed to be like what it is now. It was, we didn't ever really have an idea for it. It was like, I wanted to talk about my own experiences with my mental health, because when I was struggling most, they're the things that I needed to hear. Yeah. And that's like why we started. That's how it even began. And that's like what we're doing with this podcast now. Leave It Here is essentially we've made it to normalize talking about mental health, and also showing that like success and struggling can come hand in hand, and they can coexist together.
Absolutely.
And you are a prime example
you are
of
a prime
that.
example of that. So I think like the best place to start is like just talking about your own journey with your mental health. Yeah. Like how did that start, and like what's your story with
what
it?
Is my story with mental health? Well, I mean, it's an odd one really, because I have always been on the edges from being very small. I'm the youngest of 8. and I come from I come from a big family, but a family of largely of women. I've got a half brother, and that has its own pressures and strange dynamic. But I was always a kid on the outside. I was definitely the odd one out of the family. Whether sisters of mine had called me, "Oh, she's the weirdo," or "She's the." Well, I was into David Bowie, Roxy Music, all the electronic music, Cabaret Voltaire, Human League, that kind of thing, and they were all following disco, funk, and soul, and that kind of thing. I'd dress up to go out in. 1 week looking like a new romantic covered in gold paint and with stripy Bedouin pants on. And then the next week I'd be in an evening dress. And the week after that, I'd be in chains and Mohicans. So I was like really trying to discover myself, but it was different. I was always different to my family. And I very much felt that difference. And also what happened was when I started going to clubs, 15, 16, then I was starting to explore my sexuality as well. And the hidden side of the difference was that I was realising that I like boys as well as girls. And that has in itself caused me not a massive problem, but it's put a stress on how I've navigated the big wide world of relationships and love. And I've always presented as straight, but always been sort of deviously having lesbian moments, and sometimes it would be discovered and sometimes it wouldn't, but it always meant that I was in denial of this existence of being bi. And
I was just going to say, do you think it's shame?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely ashamed of it, because I mean, even as a black queer person, being black and queer, even in 2023, has its crispy edges. Are we allowed to be that thing? Being who we are in front of the world is, can sometimes be tricky.
Yeah.
And there are some countries, where, Africa or wherever, where people are still persecuted for that and imprisoned and tortured or whatever. So I'm not saying, we weren't tortured or imprisoned in the UK, but
it's still difficult.
Even just
still
in family
shame.
terms, it's not really, I don't think I've ever really discussed it with my family. They kind of know, but they kind of don't.
It's just not spoken about.
And when I've openly had relationships with women, I've either been encouraged to tell everybody about it and come out about it. And I'm like, why do I need that? And there's always been this
friction.
Friction.
But you do talk about it now, don't you? And
I do,
I've read
but
interviews,
I think that is part of the contact with yourselves, where I'm like, actually, I can be out about this. I can, and it would be good to be out about this, because that there is still, and someone said it to me only a couple of months ago when we were discussing the book, and I termed myself as queer, and he said, "No, you're not," and he's a gay man. And I'm like, are you kidding me?
There's still so much in the community about bisexual.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, it's
no,
ridiculous.
I'm not. And this is why.
You messaged me after that, didn't you? And
yeah,
I was
I did.
like,
I messaged you straight away. And I was like, this is so unfair, because people wonder why nobody buys out, because there is that struggle. It's not just an internal struggle, but there's that struggle on the outside where gay men and lesbians will both say to me very openly, "No, you're not queer." And I'm like, what do I have to do to prove this? Do I have to do this in front of you? And why do I have to? Because if you're that thing and you're that thing and you can happily exist, and I believe you for whatever you want to say you are, why is the ground that I'm occupying
not valid
not
or
valid or relevant.
That's it. And I struggle so much with that within our community, that like there's still so much work to do.
Be done, yeah.
And that is a massive part of it as well, of accepting everybody within our community. Like, why aren't we like lifting each other up and celebrating and not questioning each other's identities or who we are? Like, let's let ourselves live and be happy and enjoy ourselves.
I wanted to just go back to the question of the mental health journey. From what you've said so far, obviously, like you said, your siblings was like, you're the odd one out. Your outfits changed all the time. Obviously, exploring your sexuality as well. Like, it all seems your mental health journey from the start may have been like looking after everybody, like looking out from everybody else.
Yeah, and not really looking
within. Yeah, like not just focusing on you. It sounds like it was like you was the odd one out. You was this. You're like trying to put you in a kind of a box.
And also, I'm trying to be what other people want me to be.
Exactly.
So it's like, oh well, if I'm not that, then I must be this, and trying to be that for my family, and trying to be that person for society. So I got married, and I remember I got married. And when I started DJing at Flesh, I said to my husband, this isn't actually in the book, but I said to my husband, I'm gay. Mm-hmm. And it caused a massive argument. And then it was just like, oh, I better not say that again.
I'll just forget it and
backshelve that. But it was one of the reasons why we split up, because he was just like, well, I can't trust you. Mm-hmm. It's like, no, but see, this is the thing. I just have to say this as a break in the conversation. That stereotypical idea of what it is to be bisexual, meaning that you're greedy and untrustworthy because you can take everything, kind of does away with the idea of discernment that everybody has. So if you're picky and if you want to, pick the right person, actually, and I'm going to say this with a gross word, being bisexual means you get double fuck all.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because if you're picky about who you're with, it doesn't mean you're going to grab everything. It means you're going to take your time to choose between both things. And when that person comes along, that comes into the space that you resonate with, that you get that kind of energy where you click and you think, all right, I could be with that person. That means your choice is working double hard, not less hard.
Yeah. And also, like, you're looking for these jobs, trust me, it's not.
Also, that idea of it being greedy is like, okay, well, I've already spent my life figuring out my sexuality. Why now does it feel wrong? Just because I like both. It doesn't mean I want both all the time or like
you can't even physically have both all the time. You can only take one or the other for a while. I mean, I know some people get involved with multiple people, but I am not that kind of person. I'm a one-person person. So when it happens, whether it's male or female, I'm with them until I'm not with them.
Yeah.
So, that's how it works for me. And I wish there would be that open discussion where it's kind of okay to be that, but it's never been okay. Even in 2023, it's not okay to be that. And I wish people would understand more how it works.
Yeah. So
which is why I'm single and not seeing anybody. I've been
you're available.
For ages.
You're available.
We'll leave Paulette's number at the end of the podcast.
You've got to buy a book first, though. Your early memories then with your mental health, like started young, right? Like 7.
Really young. And I was very, because I was so different, there were lots of reasons, but I was a kid that acted out. So I was also very intelligent, so that there were 2 things going on. I was achieving at school, really early reader, did my grade 3 in violin at 7 or 8 years old. Like,
wow.
So we were just always achieving at school, but then at home, because we were the youngest of 8 and at the bottom of the pile, and we were twins as well. So we were acting out all the time. Me and Paula used to fight like cat and dog, like really vicious fight. And, we laugh about it now, but it was like survival of the fittest identity. It's because they always dressed us the same. And And they, you know, even now, certain of my sisters still call us the twins. It's like, we're 57.
Yeah, we've got our own identities. Like,
you know, can we kind of
Move on.
move on?
we always get called the girls, don't we?
Yeah, you know, you just kind of get lumped in, and it's like, no, we're Paula and Paulette.
Yeah.
You know, and there's always been that pull of identity, the separation. You know, we love being twins, don't get me wrong, we love it, but we need to be our own people. So there was always that kind of lashing out, striking out, and then because I was really frustrated at school as well with whatever was happening, being in the middle of white Irish, you know, me and Paula, the only two black students in 850 or 1,000 students.
Oh
you can kind of figure out what that brought with it. So when we'd be getting home from school, and I'd just be trashing my bedroom, like my teenage years were just like a black hole of tantrums and all sorts, but I was never sent to talk to anybody.
I was going to say,
it.
Did anyone ever check in on you? Because I think that's
kidding
like,
me. Yeah, I wrote a lot of diaries.
Yeah, well, I was going to get onto it, but there's a message in there when like people are overachieving, and from the outside, people then think that you're doing great.
Yeah.
Like, they're so good at this, so good at that, so good at this, but no one ever checks in with you because they don't see the behind the scenes.
Yeah,
the school wouldn't have known that behind the scenes you were like,
and there wasn't much food, and school was the best place ever because I managed to eat, you know, that kind of thing. And, you know, they just really didn't background check for anything that was going on. And, you know, my family did super, super well coming through school, but it wasn't, you know, without its challenges. My mum brought up a family of 8 practically on her own. So, you know, given that, you know, she was holding down 2-day jobs and singing at night, we never saw her. So we were kind of feral.
yeah. Yeah.
So that, you know, meant that I could go to clubs when I was 15 because I wasn't really being watched. And I could smoke in school and sell cigarettes for 10p and matches for 5 because I was...
Smart there. No one ever thinks about the matches.
No one ever thinks about the matches.
Oh my God, no one does think about the matches.
Upselling.
So, you know, I was doing things like that, but then also once I started going to clubs and staying out late and clubbing 3 times a week, then, you know, the gateway of acid, weed, speed.
Yeah. Wow.
You know, it all came on top. And then obviously meeting boys and losing my virginity, which happened really early, and all the kind of history that brings with it that I was dealing with on my own. You know, I wasn't talking to anyone about it. I was just experiencing it and going with whatever, you know, wherever that took me. But then it does kind of mess with your head.
Yeah, and I guess
you found a technique.
And I did find a technique.
Which I really want to talk about.
Writing diaries. I've kept a diary since I was really small, probably 7 or 8. I started keeping a diary.
For your entire life.
Yeah, but I don't have any of the early ones really. Well, not really at all. I think because I destroyed a lot of them. I destroyed a lot of them for lots of different reasons. There were a lot of bad memories. And I could see, you know, reading back on lots of them, I could see where I was having a breakdown. I could see where all those moments were. And I'd be
like a beautiful thing, isn't it, to be able to read
wow,
back
I don't want anyone to find that, you know, all the writing and weirdness. It's like...
So even the way that you're saying that is kind of almost like another level of like shame for how you felt at that time. I don't want anyone to see this.
I really didn't know, you know, and even when I moved back to Manchester and from Paris and Spain, and a friend of mine, Gary, was keeping a lot of my stuff in his loft because I didn't have anywhere to put it. And when I got my house and he was selling his house and he said, can you come and get all that stuff out of my loft because I need to sell the house? So I'm like, all right, what have you got? And he said, well, you know, there's this and there's that. And I'm like, right, okay, the vinyl and then this. It's like, yeah, thousands of records. And I'm like, where am I going to put all that? And he said, no, and there's 2 chests in my loft, which are like, what are they? And he said, there's 2 like 100-litre blue metal chests in the loft. And I said, what's in them? He went, oh, books. And I went upstairs and there was like 2 200-litre cask like thing of diaries, from probably 1994 to 2015.
Wow.
Loads of books. And I kind of went up into the loft and started reading through them, and I was like, no way. No way.
Mm-hmm.
Burn them.
Yeah.
So you burned them all?
And he said, you what? I went, take them, incinerate them, shred them, bury them. I do not want to see a single one of them. And he said, why? And I said, why does anyone ever want to bring all of those bad memories into the present? I don't want to bring any of that with me. I said, what's in there that's a good memory? I have it in my head.
Yes.
And what's in there that's a bad memory, I'd like to leave it where it is. Yeah. So he just burnt it all, took it to the tip and burnt it all.
Yeah, I want to digest that a little. Was it something like with the technique of writing in the diary? Was it like something would happen, or was it literally like a day-to-day thing? You'd sit down. Like, what was the process of it? Or was it just like when you needed it, you pick it up? Or was it like an actual...
I'm very much, when I need it, I'll pick it up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Interestingly now, I seem to have a once a month cycle. It always comes with the full moon. And as I'm writing it, I'm like, oh, here we go again. Mm-hmm. Full moon writing. Here she is. Here she is. Howling.
Can I say an impression?
Yeah, I'm good at that. I can do that really
I think this can really help people.
But it does
really get it out of your...
I have to admit that for good or for bad, even though I've burnt them, it is really cathartic and it is a really good exercise to write and to journal. But, and there's a very big but.
Yeah.
What I saw from those diaries was I'm writing about the same shit over and over again. So there was stuff that I wasn't processing that I didn't know how to deal with, and it kept coming back and it kept coming back. And what it showed me is that I need help.
Yeah. And
at all different times when I've sought help, I've maybe not sought the right help. Okay. I've not got the right help. So what was clear to me when I burnt all those diaries was at no point did anybody ask me if I was all right. At no point did I tell anyone that I wasn't all right. I was just holding it all in. And there was one line that I'd written was just like, which I will remember forever. It was just like, I'm holding these memories like Sigourney Weaver in Alien, like an alien baby in my chest that I'm going to jump in the fire and take it to my death. Wow. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. I read it and I thought, I'm not going to do that.
You broke the cycle.
I'm going to get some help. I'm going to get some help. And it took a while, but I did get some help and I started getting the right help. From 2017 onwards, I started getting the right help. And I also realised that you have to be honest with your therapist. You have to tell them exactly what the problem is and where it's coming from. Because if you only go a little bit back and you don't tell them where the root of the problem is, or you don't go far enough back to tackle the root of the problem, it will always come back. So the turning point for me very much was 1, destroying the diaries, 2, realising the cycles, 3, realising that I wasn't really being fully honest with the therapist about what the issues were, and 4, getting the right help. And once I started to get the right help, then things started to change and I could recalibrate myself.
So that's a process in itself.
It is.
I think that's really interesting though. And I've actually experienced similar when I first started therapy. was kind of going into a room and one, been like, I don't know what to say.
I did the same.
Two, like, is this important enough? Doubting myself to even be speaking to someone about. But I think it's so interesting that you can suppress things for so long that you can't even be honest with the person who's there to help you.
Yeah.
That's their job. And I think that is, and I agree with what you say there as well, is like the right help. And I think for a lot of people, you like, there's so much information online, and I think that the NHS is so stretched that it's kind of like a one size fits all kind of scenario. Like I've tried different forms of therapy, like talking therapy, CBT, like lots of different things.
Same.
And you're not wrong if that therapy isn't helping you.
If it doesn't work for you, it's different for everybody what they respond to. You know, what I've, like you, have done talking therapy, CBT, EMDR, like you name it. I've had people waving feathers over me and burning white sage. Like I've done rebirthing, I've done psychiatrists, I've done everything. Not all of it worked. I've been on Prozac. That really did not work for me. It's worked for other of my friends. But when I was on Prozac, when I split up with my husband, I was just like a zombie. Like it just completely wrecked my life. And how I managed to do a degree and do whatever I was doing at that time is just like a miracle, because I was turning up to the wrong classes. I was away with the fairies. Like I was all over the place when I was on Prozac. But then when I had EMDR I started that in 2017, and I've had like 3 blasts of that through between 2017 and 2022. And the real turning point for me was the therapist that worked with me through lockdown, and she nailed it. And we actually did some proper work, and it was just like,
was it like a light bulb moment?
Oh my God, because you know, we weren't talking about absolutely everything, but she asked me to pick the key moments. And I'd start talking about moments, and and then she'd be like, oh, but that goes further back, you know. And we just kept going back and back and back until we got to the root, which was like, it comes from there.
Wow. And was that a light bulb moment for you
and
as
it
well?
was, because I was tiny. Where it comes from, I was little. So it was like, you know, you do have to find, it takes a bit of effort to find the person that really can work well with you.
You have to be able to click with them as well. And it's like meeting anybody, I think. And this comes from like a privileged place, I guess, of being able to afford to go to private therapy sessions.
Don't get me wrong, I've had some really, really bad ones. Which I stuck with for way longer than I should have stuck with, and they probably did more harm than good. So what I would recommend for anyone doing, you know, embarking on this mental health journey is, if it feels wrong, stop. As soon as you feel like, no, this ain't happening, stop. Because the damage you can do by thinking, oh, it'll get better tomorrow, or maybe it's just me. The damage you can do with that is enormous. So yes, stop. Get away from that person, move away from the therapist couch, and you know, give yourself a bit of time to regroup and think about who you want to talk to, how you want to talk about it, and what you actually want to achieve. And don't be stuck with someone waving a
That is
Feather and jingling a dream catcher over your head. Sorry, I didn't mean to spit on you, but
Well, I thought that was part of the therapy.
yeah.
but I have
Feathers and
seen
spit.
it all. I've seen it all. I've had people beating me and doing the rebirth, like in a blanket and doing the rebirth and everything.
You've been
It's
in and out
like,
of therapy for like 24 years.
yeah,
haven't you?
yeah,
So it's-
longer, yeah.
It's taken that long to find
Yeah.
somebody.
And when I had that moment when it actually worked, and I was like, oh my God. And the biggest light bulb moment that came is I've got choices.
Yeah.
Like realizing what your choices are. And that whatever your mood is, that you can change it.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I
You
literally was
can
on the phone to my
change
friend
it.
before this, and she's struggling at the moment. And I said, I need you to remember, whatever's going on, you are always in control.
Yeah,
because people
exactly.
around you can say what they want. All these different experiences can be happening, but you're always in control.
Yeah.
And I think when you're struggling, you can just forget that.
Yeah.
And you forget you have choices.
Yeah.
I have the opportunity to say yes or no, or what route I want to go down with this problem.
Yeah.
I think when you're struggling, it's just one big black hole.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was literally saying that this morning.
Yeah, and it's true that realization that we also choose how we respond to situations or how we engage with situations. And I realized that sometimes, like, one of the big problems I had, I'd struggle with it for years, and people weren't talking to me, and that person wasn't talking to me, and that person wasn't talking to me. And I just, like, the eye-opener was, this is me doing this. They're not doing it. I don't know what the hell they're thinking. This is all in my head. So if I take away that they're not talking to me and I just deal with them in the ordinary everyday, I wonder what will happen. And all of a sudden, all these people that I thought weren't talking to me or were difficult with me or that saw me in a certain way actually didn't see me in that way. And it's like, oh my God, I've just put myself in a prison, like literally in a mental prison of my own making for years.
Yeah.
For years.
I think
And that's really scary.
Yeah.
it is. And I think that that comes from like a place of like low self-esteem, low
yeah,
self-worth.
totally.
And I always say now, like, because I used to struggle with that a lot of like what people's view of me was. And I think I hit a point where I was like, do you know what? I can just ask them.
Yeah.
Like if I think that someone is being different with me, or maybe I've said something without realizing and it's upset them, I'm like, I could just ask them that question instead of spending days and hours and weeks of worrying. I can just go, is everything all right?
Yeah.
Because maybe that person could be having a bad day as well. And
exactly.
how they're feeling or how they're interacting with me maybe just isn't about me.
Exactly. And
Not
that's the
everything
big
is about
thing.
us, and we
It's not
forget that.
everything's about
Exactly,
us.
yeah.
And I hear myself saying that to people, you know, when they're coming at me with, oh, such and such a body, it's not talking to me, and this isn't happening, this isn't happening. I'm like, honestly, not everything's about you. Not everything's about me. You know, I have to stand back many a time when I'll just get that knee-jerk reaction, like, oh, that's happened because of whatever reason. And it's like, it's absolutely not.
Yeah.
They've probably not even noticed. They're in their story, you're in your story, and those two stories have absolutely zero to do with each other.
Yeah.
They've got nothing to do with each other.
I want to go back to self-esteem.
Yeah.
Because I know, like you said, you did the light bulb therapy was 2017.
Yeah.
But prior to that, we did a lot of running around.
Yeah.
We did a lot of Spain, Paris.
Yeah.
And I remember
Superstar.
So
Paris was a
Paris.
bonkers one as well, because loads of stuff happened when I was in Paris. There was a lot of death around me, which really spun my head out. And I didn't have anyone to talk to because the French people I had around me didn't know me that well, and they kind of assumed that I only existed from 2004. So they didn't have any background on me. And, you know,
Just
I was,
DJ
I was
Paulette.
in my 40s when I got to Paris. So they only knew DJ Paulette. They didn't know where I'd been to school. They didn't know my family. They didn't know absolutely nothing about me. But they were good friends. That's not saying that they weren't good friends, but they just didn't have the depth.
Yeah.
They didn't have the connection or the depth to come to me. Like, so when my dad died, and my dad died really quickly. My dad died in 2007. So when my dad died, I got chicken pox, I got shingles straight away and then I went into this horrible spiral. Like, it was almost a 4-year depression after my dad died. But because my dad died, and then I split up with my partner, and then my partner's grandmother died, who I was really close to, and then 2 people from work who'd been like the champions of me in Paris. They died in quick succession. And like, it's like almost 6 or 7 people really close to me died in quick succession. And I remember being in Paris, and I was working, and I was like at the absolute top of my game. Like, people were following me around the streets in Paris.
Crazy.
They'd copy the way I dressed. They'd scream if they saw me and I was walking in the streets.
Well, I
it was
saw that.
bonkers.
I really hate to interrupt this, because I don't want to interrupt this part, but I saw that happen when we were out for dinner, and there was the French guy who was a waiter, and he
lost it.
He lost his mind.
Yeah.
And like, I was like, wow, I know Paulette's like a big deal, but he was like, wow, that you were my like my early clubbing days. Really lost it.
Yeah.
Which is just kind of gave me a very tiny glimpse into like the stardom that you had.
Yeah.
there.
And I lost it. I lost it and like, I was performing, and it was amazing, and I was on telly, and I was on the radio, and I was in clubs playing thousands of people every week. And then I go home and I wouldn't open the shutters. I didn't open the shutters for 2 years.
Why?
That is
Like, my
the
flat was
definition
in the
of,
dark.
that
My
is the
flat was in
definition
the
of
dark.
success and struggle.
Yeah,
at the same
yeah,
time.
yeah. It was mayhem. And then one day, I was writing my diary. I remember I was lying in bed and I was writing my diary, and there was just this moment, like, I felt like I'd come up from underwater, and I wrote it. I knew that moment when the depression lifted, and I was like, but then what happened was, like, I was like, where the hell am I? I don't want to be here anymore. This is done. I am done with this. Like, I need to leave. And that was around 2010, 2011, and that just set in the wheels into motion. What? The breakdown that came next on the top of it, which was like,
so there was another
hardcore,
one after that.
Yeah,
Wow.
which was really hardcore. That was dissociation. Like, I lost my love of the music. I didn't know what I was doing. I wanted to leave Paris, but I couldn't come back to England, and it was just like, wow, this is interesting. This is really interesting.
I guess, and that brings us on to like so Paulette, you here sat here now, and then DJ Paulette, like, how different are those two people? Because I've been to your sets, and the energy that you give is like wild. Like, it's unreal watching you perform. And like, how were you still able to, like, and I guess leave it here, but how were you able to leave that and then get into that booth and give that energy?
Like you said,
when
you
you're
didn't open
going
your
through
shutters.
that?
You
Like,
didn't open
I
your
didn't
shutters for
open
2
my
years, but like you
shutters for
said,
2 years.
you was
yeah, I mean, it's nice now because I don't drink, I don't take drugs, I don't, I don't smoke. And it's not the big don't, but in order to kind of maintain and sustain that kind of level of performance, something had to give.
Yeah.
And in those other years, I was like, for Paris, I was pissed for the entire 10 years that I was there. It's funny, but it's not.
Yeah.
Like, I could tell you how you drink all around every department of France.
Yeah.
Everywhere's got a different drink, its native drink and how to drink it, or its best wine, or its best, digestive or whatever.
Leave me the list later.
And
Paulette.
how you do it, and how you do it. And I thought I was a really funny drunk.
Yeah.
But what's happened now is, like, how I leave how DJ Paulette does that and how Paulette me does this is I keep a really tight circle of friends.
Yes.
I know who my real friends are. I'm not kind of casting about trying to be popular. I couldn't give a anymore. I really, I don't need to be, and I also don't care whether people like me or whether they don't. Like key phrase. I remember Anthony Pike telling me, you can't always be everybody's cup of tea.
Yeah.
And that was a real light bulb moment for me, because it's like, well, if they don't like me, it's their loss.
Yeah.
I know, just keep around you the people that that if it's 2:00 in the morning and you've just split up with your partner, or you've lost your keys and you're stood outside your flat and you're desperate, or you've got no money and you are desperate, keep those people around you, like the people that are there for good and for bad, not the ones that are there just because they can get a guest list, or that they can sit with you and you're really interesting at the table, but as soon as you start to address something personal, they're like shifting in their seats and have to go and talk to somebody, that actually isn't in the corner of the room. But, it's like, oh, you're going over there? Then.
Don't you think you have to ride that wave? You've got to ride that wave of success, like you were saying, like in Paris, like you was fun, Paulette, drinking all around France, but you've got to do that to learn it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you do.
Do you think that?
Yeah, you do. You do. And I think it's quite there's something quite sad about how it was for me in Paris, because this is why I'm quite nervous about going down the like fashion-y, the look of it route, because I did that in Paris. It was like, whether I'm Swarovski, and I had lots of close ties with Paul and Joe and Diesel and this fashion house and that fashion house, whatever. Nothing mega big, not your Chanel's or anything like that, but I had like quite close fashion ties. But then you end up being a bit of there's a France Gall record called Poupée de Cire, Poupée de Sang, which is a doll of wax and a doll of sound. So basically she's talking about this thing about being a construct in the music industry and in fashion. And it's that, you're just a doll, you're just somebody that's owned by other people, and that you wear this and you talk that way and you look that way and you play your music that way, but you don't know actually who you are. And that's what happened at the end of my time in Paris. I was just like, I don't know who I am anymore. Yeah. Like, I'm looking like this. The head of the radio station called me the Lady Gaga of DJing, and he wasn't being nice when he said it. Right. So it was just like, I think you do have to experience that, but you do also have to exercise caution if you're going to go down that route. So if you're going to go down the drugs route, exercise caution, because it will bite you in the ass at some point. If you're going to be a drunk, it will bite you in the ass. And trust me, there are more people that I have pissed off by being drunk Paulette dancing on the stage when they were DJing. And I'm like, I won't name names, but they've never worked with me again. And I know that's why. So it's like, I understand it. I know I'm really embarrassed, but like, shit happens.
Within that space, within those rooms that you're in the booths and the rooms and the bars, in your industry, is mental health talked about? Is it normal? Or
now it is. Yeah. Now people are talking about it, but it wasn't, 1994 to 2020,
You're
the
a legend.
pandemic, people really didn't talk about it. I mean, I think people started to talk about it probably around 2015-ish, and there were rumblings of people losing the plot and not coming back. And, are we really treating people in the music industry well, or, whatever. And then you'd get like suicides like Avicii, which kind of started the conversation and then didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, nobody's ever really talked about what that represented for him.
Yeah.
Because it's money, you know, and at the end of the day, if you're making that kind of money for other people, they don't want to address the mental health issues of it, but now they have to address the mental health issues.
Because that's the thing, isn't it? Like, let's not sugarcoat it. Drugs and alcohol, they fuck with your mental health.
It's a really bad mixture.
If you're already, even one each on their own.
And lack of sleep, which most artists have. You know, you're, you know, at the height of your game, you can be on and off flights in 2 different or 3 different countries in one day. I've never done that, but I know artists who are regularly doing that. And it takes its toll. You know, even if you're traveling first class, you're still on a plane.
Yeah. The thing I love you about the most since I've known you is you have, I know, obviously I don't know you in the past, but now you have so many boundaries. And I love that.
I've got so many boundaries that no one can get close. I'm like an electric eel. It's like tasing everybody. It's like, no,
I think boundaries, people talk about boundaries and it's always like, I think this, and I do it, like such a negative thing of like,
because it's a buzzword. Boundaries is like a buzzword of like, oh, you must have boundaries in order to be that. Like, actually, boundaries is just having the ability and the self-trust and self-worth to go, oh, actually, like, it's better for me to not do this or better for me to say no.
Protecting myself is more important than anything else. That's what I love about you. Like,
but that's how, you know, and going back to the question, how do I split DJ Paulette and Paulette, who I am to my friends and who I am to my family, is boundaries. I've got really super clear boundaries about what I will do and how I perform and who I will have in the booth. You know, I've got in my rider that I have nobody behind me when I'm DJing. I don't like it. You know, that's part of my mental health journey. Something happened. We won't talk about it. But after that point, it's like, right, okay. I just won't encourage that kind of thing to happen again. So it's easier to just say, everybody out. When I've finished playing, it's fine. But while I'm playing, I have nobody behind me, apart from dancers and, you know, whoever is permitted in that area. I do have very clear boundaries. I don't drink. You know, I want water, I want tea, I want apple juice, I want whatever. And I don't do after parties.
Because I hope you obviously don't mind me mentioning, like, you'd have suffered from panic attacks.
I still get them. I still get them, and it's crushing.
Like that is for me is like the definition of like leaving it there.
Like, that's why I don't like being at a gig too early, because I get nervous before I play. So I'm normally half an hour before I play, you will see me in the club. If I'm earlier than that, it's normally because we've had to drive so far to a gig, or I've had to travel so far to a gig that the timings have worked that I'm there. But I can guarantee you that anything over an hour is a nightmare for me. I just do not enjoy the wait.
Has that always, have you always been nervous before you played? Or is it a recent thing that you, through like self-discovery and therapy?
It's got more pronounced the older I've got. Where, you know, but just because of the environment being really chaotic and hectic. And I could deal with that more. But the older you get, you just kind of want a quiet life, a quieter life. Don't get me wrong, I can be as giddy and stupid as the next person, and it doesn't take drugs for me to entertain and be like, really, like, I am funny. I am a funny person. And I enjoy people, so I enjoy being around people. But I don't enjoy the hectic chaos of being around a lot of people that are super, super pissed and super off their heads. That makes me really uncomfortable, because whatever has happened to me in the past has happened in those environments.
Yeah.
So I just would rather remove myself from that. When it all gets a bit too much, I'm just like, if it starts to bring about a panic attack, which has happened occasionally in the last few months, and I'm just like, everybody out the green room.
Yeah.
Everybody out. I don't care who you are. I don't care how important you are. Out. I need to like lie on the floor with my feet up, like deep breathing until I get back into my body. And it's happened. It's happened.
So powerful. Like you can do that. Like that.
I've had to learn how to do it.
I was about to say, how do you?
Because until I learned how to do it, I didn't know what was happening, and I lashed out at people because I was nervous, and they just saw that as me being a pain in the ass or a diva or, you know, what's wrong with it. And inside my head, it was just like World War III. Yeah. Or even, it's not like World War III, it's just like a blank. Like, I'm actually not thinking of anything now, and I really need to. And my brain is just like, mate, you're on your own, bye. Like, I'm out of here.
You can deal with this.
Deal with this, I'm gone.
But yeah, I guess it goes back to that of like exploring why that happens, and like
it's a disconnect.
Being able to have
it's
the
dissociation.
boundaries.
It's a disconnect.
Yeah.
I know what's happening now. When I get really super stressed out, and I have to be like the adrenaline has to be super high for it to happen. But I will dissociate, like just to save myself. It's like it's a dissociation. It's a coping
It's your brain,
mechanism.
isn't it? It does it.
I don't want it to happen when I'm just about to go.
It's a crazy full
play
circle
record.
moment for me. Like hearing your story, it's such a full circle moment of when you're like you're 7 and you're the odd one out in the family. You go to school, you're the odd one out. Like there's been so many times throughout your journey where you're like, I'm basically trying to people please.
Yeah.
Where now you've looked within, and now you've got these boundaries and these techniques that calm you down so you protect other people.
Yeah.
Like you were saying that like it's to stop you being like defensive or stop you from going like on
batshit on somebody for no reason.
So it's a kind of a full circle moment of looking within inside yourself.
For good reason, not for no reason, for good reason, but they won't understand it's a good reason. To them, it will be no reason because they don't know what's going on in my head. That's also why I don't take requests, because that is coming into a space that I am trying super, super hard to keep clear so that I can work. Yeah. I can't have people flashing phones at me and flashing requests or, you know, wind it up, speed it up, all this. And people are rude in clubs.
I think people forget that it's your
that
job.
You're a human being.
You're a human being.
More than it being my job, people forget that the DJ there is a human being with emotions. We're not robots. We're with emotions. And because we are also, whether you like to think about it in these terms or not, but it's a truth, but we are artists. We're creating something. We're creating a soundtrack from scratch, from nothing, using other people's records that is going to soundtrack everybody's night, that we are under pressure to entertain a room full of people, whether it's 50 people, 100, 10,000. We have like that responsibility to entertain everybody is our responsibility, and having one person at the front that's doing that is like that breaks the magic like that. And we have got to always be like
it's pressure,
dodging
it's so
bombs from people in order to keep that really steady like lovely vibe going.
So
when you've
pressure.
got someone doing that.
Don't do it.
I wanted to touch on then, Paulette, just after what we've we chatted about the whole time, is you've got your debut book coming out.
Yes.
Which is incredible. On the 23rd of January, 2024. Welcome to the club. I've read it. I'm actually on my second time reading it right now because unreal. Like,
Wait,
when
you read it, and I said I'm reading it next, and then you picked
she's
it back
got
up
it
again.
again.
Yeah.
I love that.
But it's
love that,
because
though.
what and I remember when you gave me the copy, we were stood outside, and you said that you feel like you've written it in your tone of voice.
Yeah, totally.
And you are so incredible and engaging to speak to, and you talk in such a way that you just want to keep listening. That's how it felt reading the book. Like it took me I think 2 days.
Yeah.
2 days. I literally just flew through it, and I'm reading it again slowly because I'm like, I want to take in more of the information.
It was a lovely quiet 2 days, Paulette. Lovely quiet 2 days.
It's funny you say that because, I've given it to lots of different people for steers on direction and all of this, like you do, and what you do with your book. And I gave it to Simon and Felix from Basement Jacks, and I met
dropping
them.
in there.
I know, but I've known them for years, as you'll read it.
It's crazy.
They pop up in my book, but I've known them for years. And we were DJing at the Drum Sheds not so long ago. They were in the big room and I was in the little room. And I said to them, "Oh, have you been reading the book?" And Felix's wife turned around and went, "The green book." Is that the green book on the bedside table?
That's where mine is.
Obviously, that this is causing some kind of friction. She said, he reads it every night.
Paulette, when I get home, I'm going to send you a photo of where that book is. It's on the side of the bed.
It's actually on a stand as well. It's on a stand. It's on a stand, so it's propped up against
I see your face every time I go to bed.
I'm sorry.
Gemma turns round every night really quick.
But it is, I'm very, very proud of it. The pride in having written every single word myself, and even through the edits, they've managed to keep my sense of humour and my turn of phrase.
Oh, I can't wait to read it.
It's an incredible read. So anyone watching this, pre-order it. Oh, that's my camera. Pre-order it.
I haven't even been looking at a camera. I've been looking all over the place like there's a fly in the room.
Pre-order it. Going to be released on the 23rd of Jan. Yeah, it's just brilliant.
And it's not just about me, it's about a lot of other people. It's like, how do I write a book about me without writing a book about me?
Yeah.
And it is a bit like that because more than it just being about me, it's about dance music. It's about clubbing. And this is my life. It's been my life since I started going to clubs when I was 15 years old. I had my first job in the music industry when I was 18. And it is a life of really of clubs, of music, of highs, of lows, of absolute successes and really criminal disasters. And I'm still here wanting to tell the tale, and I want to celebrate those people that I've met along the way that have made it easier, that are still kind of striking out, like yourselves, and creating communities that, because this is what it's all about. These are the communities, these are the people I've met that are so solid. Like, you need to know about these people. And I don't want those histories to be forgotten. Like, this has been my moment to tell people about the past, the present, and the future, and really just concretize that. And have it in a book that's in the university, which is where it is. It's gone into the university libraries. That's why I wrote for Manchester University Press, so that there's no question. If somebody wanted to Google and say Manchester 2023, what was happening, it should pull it out.
They will see,
yeah.
Paulette, you're a beautiful human.
You're I've absolutely loved this conversation, and thank you so much for sharing so openly and authentically your story.
Thank you for inviting me.
I think it's going to help a lot of people. The one thing that we're going to be doing on every episode of Leave It Here is I'm going to give you a little piece of card and a pen, and the idea behind this is that we want you to take something that maybe you are holding on to or struggling with now, no matter how big or small it might be, write it down, put it in the box, and it's gone. And it's quite a lovely little moment to do for yourself because of the stuff with the diaries that we've spoken about, that you kind of wrote down your stuff, how you were feeling, and kind of left them. And I think you actually said it, leave it. I'm going to leave it there at one point. So you don't have to share what you're writing. If you want to share it, then you can. But it's just a moment for you to let go of something.
Yeah, well,
and it's going to be destroyed after this, by the way.
Good, yeah. Well, I am quite happy to, I would really like to put my anxiety in the bin, because it is something that actually got worse during lockdown and coming out of lockdown, and meant that I actually crossed a promoter because of me being anxious in their post-lockdown party, and it's meant that I haven't worked with them since because I was just like freaking out and gave them a really negative review, which meant that they thought I was difficult and I haven't worked for this party again, which is a shame, because if they understood why I was like that, I kind of came out of lockdown an absolute blithering mess. Like I'd had a breakdown and I didn't want to be near people. I was really nervous of being near people. Like few people in my family had died. We had 5 deaths. And so I was really like, when I started going back into clubs and events, I was nervous. Like my anxiety was through the roof. And I know I wasn't pleasant to be around. At certain events like Kat Warburton will tell you, or Sophie B will tell you, I was a nightmare. I was like social distancing. Like I had 2 meters. If anyone got closer than 2 meters to the DJ booth, I was moving tables, literally moving tables. I'm like, I don't. Like move them, and they're like, but that's money. I'm like, I don't care. Move. And I'd just be that person that was just like, there can't be anybody within 2 meters of me. And I was like that for ages, and they were so nice and tolerant of me being in this state. Some people weren't as nice. But, that's not their fault. Money's money. But, some people actually really understood it. So for me, actually putting my anxiety about going back into events and being around people would be really nice, because it means I could have a social life and stop making excuses for not coming to things that I've promised to come to.
Well, you've left it here.
We're going to take that away for you, Paulette. Don't you worry about it.
Burn it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
it's
thank
been
you.
An absolute pleasure.
It's been ace. Yeah.
Full circle moment.
Really.
Gonna go home and fangirl.
A massive hats off and bravo to you two, because it's not, it's still not the easy conversation, but the more we have the conversation, the easier it gets. So it's down to people like you that are really, waving the flag for it and saying it's okay.
Thank you.
And it really is okay to have these conversations. And there are people that will listen, and there are associations that can help. And if I could give anybody advice today, is ask for help.
Yes.
If you are struggling, do not struggle. You are not alone. There will be somebody who can help you, who can point you in the right direction. But please, please, please ask for help. Do not do it on your own.
That's perfect.
What an ending.
Perfect ending.